Hi, everybody. I'm Mike, and this is Liz and Tony, and we're the Venture Labs team here at Awesome Inc. Uh, More important than that, though, we're Lexingtonians, and this community and this region and this state are very near and dear to our hearts. And like many of you were watching, as a lot of our friends and neighbors are forced into making some really big decisions on the fly, much faster than they're used to navigate some unexpected circumstances. And we want to do our part to help. First, just for a little bit of context, Awesome Inc. sits in downtown Lexington, and we drive the creation and education of technology and entrepreneurship throughout Central Kentucky. Said differently, we help people take their ideas and turn them into real things. And as the Venture Labs team, what that means for us is we spend all of our time teaching folks in the corporate space to think like entrepreneurs and to take their big ideas and transform their businesses in the long term. And those are some skills that are really necessary right now. So we wanted to do our part and share some thoughts, some how-tos that might help people get around the curve and find a way through this thing. So before we go any deeper into some of those how-tos and ideas, Liz, you want to add anything? You want to throw anything on top of that?
Sure. So a quick bio about who we are and why we would like to help in the ways we're going to today. So I'm Liz. I'm Director of Marketing for Awesome Inc. And together with Tony and Mike, we help put on these workshops. And so we want to take that expertise and share it with you guys. My background is in sales and marketing. I'll get into that a little bit later. Mike is coming from a lot of strategic and operational backgrounds and just brings a ton of vision into our program. And Tony is one of our favorite stories in Lexington. He founded his own startup, GreeTrack, shout out right behind him. He went to UK, was an engineering major, ended up at Microsoft out on the West Coast and absolutely killed it there until his startup sort of eclipsed what he was doing at Microsoft. He moved back to Kentucky and is now running his startup full-time. And so he just brings a really great view into both the startup world and the corporate space. And so we want to kind of bring all of our expertise today to the table to hopefully, even if just for one person or 10 people, help you guys kind of get around these next couple weeks and months.
Yeah, really, really well said. So Tony, I'm just going to throw it right to you. We're going to be super efficient with this thing. From your perspective, as someone who's been both in the corporate space and now has a successful tech startup, what does it mean to think like an entrepreneur, and how can that mindset help someone who's suddenly facing some very unexpected circumstances?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thinking entrepreneurially now is more important now more than ever. It's definitely a time to really start looking at your business and your processes in a completely different way. This is a different world. And so, the things that were working last month, last year, won't work in this time, or may not work in this time period that we're moving into now. So I really encourage, everyone to start thinking a little bit of outside the box on how they can run their businesses. And Venture Labs is a workshop that we put on for the community that kind of really focuses on this term called intrapreneurship, which is basically how can we get ourselves as business owners as well as our own employees the ability and the courage to think differently. And so intrapreneurship is that ideology of, like it says on the screen here, a successful adaptation of entrepreneurial attitudes and strategies inside of a business. So how can we put ourselves in the shoes of a startup founder or an entrepreneur when we're trying to start a new company, but do that inside the company we already work for, and start thinking of and developing new ideas, new products, new services, and new strategies, and especially in this turmoil time.
Yeah, great thought. And one of the core components of our conversations with Venture Labs that I love is the inherent value that's placed on a good idea coming from anywhere, right? If you're a huge organization and the good ideas are isolated to the people at the top, you're naturally holding yourselves back. And right now, those good ideas are even more valuable, simply because they're more necessary. So let's take a step that direction, Tony. Let's peek inside your brain a little bit, right? And the how to. Uh, if someone's facing these unexpected circumstances or is feeling stuck and they don't know what direction to take the next step, how do you go about finding that next idea that could be the right idea?
Yeah, great question. So the whole thought is, how can we break down our business and really examine the pieces that are the business, the pieces that make up the product, make up the service, and put them together in a different way that works in this current world that we're in now. And so that's kind of the step one that I would encourage everyone to start thinking about is, take out a piece of paper and then just write down, listing all of the different assets that you have, like what it is to be your company. What you have, what are things that are interesting to the community that your business uniquely provides, and just write them down. And don't think about, just the products that are going out the door, the services that you're providing, but think about the whole supply chain. How do you create what you create? And then think about the delivery. How do you deliver it to the end customer? All of those different things that you do is your business. It's not just the end result. So really write down all the different things that your business actually is. The people, your employees are your assets as well, right? What do your employees know or do, or what is their education? What are their skills that are uniquely make them great as employees for your business? And then we're going to compound that and say, okay, how can we leverage those skills in a new and different way that will serve the world we're living in today? And so, that would be the step one, is just write down all those assets. And the step two, I would say, is now that you have all of your Lego pieces, right? So, we've put them together for years and years to build the business we currently have, but it might not work in this time. So now we're going to break them down into the pieces and rebuild them. And so that part is step two, is ideating, basically thinking of all the different ways you can rebuild with your Legos something new and something different that works in today's age. And that ideation process, it's important that that's not limited to just you or just the business owners or just the CEO or founder. You're going to have a different perspective than your managers, and they're going to have different perspective than the frontline employees, and they're going to have different perspective than your delivery personnel or your supply chain. So really, this should be an entire company effort. If you can email out to all your employees and say, hey, we're going to try some experiments over the next few weeks or months. So no idea is a bad idea. Let's just brainstorm all together as a company. Create a Google form where employees can drop ideas or email them to a centralized email address that you create. Any way to just gather these ideas from your employees to really think about new ways. And this could even be an opportunity to leverage your community. If you have a nice following on social media or your newsletter list, feel free to invite your customers to say, hey, it's been a couple of weeks since we've started quarantine. What are you missing? Are you really missing something that our business provides? And that'll help, bubble up some things that you might not think are very important, but, they just have that nostalgia. I really want the taste of this, or I really wish I had that, but it's no longer available since we're all closed down. So, feel free to leverage your customers as well. So this ideation process, can take a couple of days, but it'll bring together some really interesting ideas. And that's your step two, really. And then step three is what we're looking at right now on the screen here, is now that we have all of these different ideas from all across the company, let's try them out and let's apply, like we learned in school, the scientific method, right? Every idea that someone proposed, that is a hypothesis. That is a hypothesis on, will this idea provide revenue, or will this idea provide more awareness in the community of your brand, or whatever your goal is, every idea is a hypothesis. And so that's what we like to teach. The book on Lean Startup Method is how do startup founders, get through starting a company. It's just so much unknown. It's so much ambiguity, and that's kind of the cornerstone of it is, don't think that your first idea or your primary idea is the one that's going to be your business. Startup founders aren't married to whatever business idea they have. They're in it to find some idea that produces value to the community, which turns into revenue, right? And so now you have all of these ideas in front of you. Start thinking about building experiments off of them. And so what we're going to do over the next couple steps here is take that idea, build an experiment, a science experiment on it. So an idea is a hypothesis, build the experiment, collect the data, analyze it, and draw conclusions. So on the next slide here, you're going to see the Lean Startup Method. And so in Lean Startup world, we basically do what we call it the build, measure, learn loop. So your ideas are at the top. And so then you'll sit down. So you get ideas from all across your company, and you sit down with your management and say, okay, how can we create this idea into something we can do tomorrow, or we can do starting Monday, and build a little experiment. You don't have to go full production. You don't have to think about packaging and marketing and all of this kind of stuff. Think about just, all right, let's take this one tiny idea and make it happen ASAP. And so then you're going to build this little experiment, which will be a product that you just post on social media or send an email newsletter to all your to your list and say, hey, for a limited time only, we're going to be doing this for just next week, and here it is, and try it out. And at the end of the week, so this is getting into your step 3 now, is you take all of those hypotheses, those ideas, build the experiment, and run it for a week or a month, depending on what your business is, and just try it out. And it can be scrappy. Don't worry. Like, this is a time of turmoil where people aren't expecting completely polished things all the time. They just want to experience your service or your product, right? So feel free to try these experiments. Run 2 or 3 if you want, if you have the bandwidth to do that, or just create a schedule and run one a week, next one a week, next one next week, and try things out. And then at the end of the week, your step 4 is, now that you've done it, is it worth it, right? Because everything usually takes a little bit of money, a little bit of time, maybe staff wages, those kind of things. So tally it up and see, was there enough revenue to make it? And is that going to be enough to bridge the gap until we get back into a normal society? And that's the goal, right? We're trying to just to bridge the gap, pay our debts as we continue to go forward. We're not going to be creating your next version of your company or the big product that goes big, right? We don't have to worry about that. We're just trying to get through this time period, make sure that we can have, salaries for our employees, and stay open through, unique methods. And so that's our goal here. And you never know, at the end of the day, something could really take off. What if one of these experiments does become the next big product for your business or the next big service? Like, this is a great time to take advantage of this non-normalcy to perform these experiments. And so I love to share one example that I read in the news last week. It was a local movie theater, which obviously is closed down now. They can't have people coming into the movie theaters. And the owner was, looked at all of his assets, right? He's got movies, he's got theater space, he's got popcorn, concessions, and you take all of these little Lego bricks that put together is your movie going experience, and you started performing experiments on each one of these hypotheses, right? And so the hypothesis he had was, I bet you there are people in my town that are craving movie theater popcorn, like authentic, real, fresh, buttered movie theater popcorn. And so that's the experiment he ran. That Monday, he just went out and said, all right, we now have drive-through movie theater popcorn available for you to just pick up warm and fresh, go home and watch your Netflix together, quarantined. And he's running that experiment. And that's such an interesting and amazing example of this lean startup build, measure, learn loop, right? He's got that idea. He'd broken down his business, take that popcorn, that one little Lego brick, and say, let's just see what we can do with this Lego brick. And built that miniature business off of it, right? So drive through, movie theater, popcorn. In no time at all, you could just start that tomorrow, right? And say, okay, post to all your social media newsletter, email newsletter list, and say, hey, we're selling popcorn. Come on by, pick up your fresh popcorn. So just think of that. This is a very small example, but it really showcases the process, right? No matter how big or how small your business is, think about tearing it down to your assets and rebuilding it in this new world, and try something out and see how it goes. And that's kind of the ideology that we kind of take people through as we're learning intrapreneurship, kind of being bold and taking those risks inside of an existing company.
That is outstanding. Thanks, Tony. And a couple of points that I want to add on top of that are a couple of pieces of that I really want to highlight that we see as best practices in all of the organizations that we work with. The first one is at that early stage in the ideation process where Tony said where you're listing all of your assets. It's really important to keep that as open box and free flowing thought as possible. Because if you're like some of us, when you if you were to write movie theater popcorn on that legal pad, there could be a voice inside your head that immediately says, well, that's not an important asset, so scratch it out and move on. If you restrict the ideas going on the page, you're going to almost accidentally restrict the value of them coming out on the back end, or you might accidentally cross off something that could be a path out of this thing. So in that early ideation process, the fewer restrictions you have on your creativity, the better. The other point is, Tony, I like how you said that your employees' creativity is an asset, right? The story that I love to tell in these kinds of conversations all the time is that back in 1975, a Kodak engineer invented digital photography, and Kodak had 90% of the camera and film industry. And he took this digital photography idea to executives and said, hey, I just invented a way to take and store a picture without film. And his bosses said, kill it. Don't do anything with it. We're a film company. We're not going to do anything like that. Well, play that out over the next few decades. And Kodak went from about 90% of their market share in the photography industry down to less than 20 as the world and really embraced digital photography. So that idea came from, again, not from that top upper tier of executive suite, but it came from someone on the front lines looking at problems firsthand, and who better to come up with the right solution than that person who's spending every day with their hands dirty on those problems. So I really like how you put your employees' thoughts and creativity as one of those assets. That's great. Liz, to jump to you real quick, help us understand or give some thoughts on the whole nature of what we're talking about here. Everything that Tony outlined was the concept of experimentation and the concept of taking an idea and testing it and then launching it and then learning and then reshaping and testing and launching, getting through that cycle. From a customer facing perspective, how can you do that without giving the impression to your customer base that you're scrambling, right? Or without trying to without giving the wrong impression to your frontline customers?
Sure. Great question. I think Tony got into some of this, and so I'm just going to dig a little bit deeper. The first thing that I would remind everyone is that, especially in today's day and age, people can quickly identify authenticity. Everyone knows things are hard right now. Customers know that. So release yourself from needing to be all put together as a company. And I would even say that emotional aspect of being honest about where you are as a company is important to get people on your side and to recruit them into helping you. So be authentic. That said, I do think there are really specific ways that you can still be professional in being authentic and asking for help in the feedback that Tony was talking about. So be upfront, but help people help you. And what I mean by that is don't send out an email to your newsletter that just says, hey guys, we're struggling. Does anyone have any thoughts on what we can do next? Send out an email that has 3 or 4 ideas you've already come up with and maybe vetted out a little bit and put it to a vote, or ask them to fill out a Google form that they can give feedback on different ideas. You can even do a voting on Instagram stories. There are so many different ways of doing this and using platforms you already have at your fingertips, that you can ask them to help you vet things rather than it seeming like you're scrambling and desperately asking for help. So you can do that honestly and professionally at the same time. I think questionnaires are a great thing to send out. But I think the movie theater idea, to dig into that, come up with it and send it out and say, hey, would anyone out there buy popcorn from us tomorrow if we have it ready? And if it's radio silence, maybe try it anyway, because we're all about trying things and failing. But hopefully you'll get some good feedback from people that said, hey, yeah, I would love to do it, but can you do it after 5 p.m.? Because I've still got to work remote all day. So if you can do it from 5 to 7, then that at least helps you hone in on that effort and get the best bang for your buck. So I think there's a lot of easy ways of doing it. The one sort of encouragement that even I've been telling myself, I saw a tweet the other day that said, hey, to all the marketing people right now, you're getting a masterclass in marketing and in pivoting. And I would say that to all of us right now, whatever your business is, whatever your job is within that business, if it's sales, if it's HR, if it's manufacturing, whatever it is, you're sitting in a masterclass right now of having to pivot, of having to think fast, think smart, and to serve your customers well. And so it's terrifying. It's scary. But we're all getting better every second of every day as we do this together. So that's been an encouragement for me. I've actually got it sitting on my desk that says you're getting a masterclass in marketing right now. There's no webinar that can teach you what we're all learning in these months. So you're not alone. We're all just doing our best, and your customers will understand that. But use them. People want to help, and oftentimes they're going to have ideas that you couldn't have known. So maybe they say, no, I don't want popcorn, but man, the candy, I will definitely buy that. I mean, who knows? People could have ideas that you can't think of internally because you're not the customer and you don't always know what needs they have that need to be fulfilled.
That's a great thought. And Liz and I were talking about this the other day, that I don't know if it's just isolated to Lexington and Central Kentucky or if it's applicable to a lot of other places, but there's such a sense of community here that most local businesses not only have a top tier of customers that would almost be considered ambassadors for their product or their brand, but that top tier of customer is really open right now to helping those businesses that they know and love find a path through this thing. And so that authenticity really notes to an openness and a willingness to work together with those top tier customers to figure it out. And you might get some great ideas from those customers. And that brings up a great segue point back to Tony. Tony, I wonder if you could talk for just a second about the idea of collaboration, because a single idea comes out of a single brain, right? But we know that collaboration really allows these ideas to come to life. So at what point do you take that idea and add collaboration into the mix, or does collaboration come in before the idea process? What do you think?
Yeah, so collaboration is key, especially in these times when, we're all together in this. This is a new world we're all experiencing. And so I would definitely encourage all business owners to just really think of new ways to work with your neighbors. Especially in these times, you might think of ways that you can partner or group up with other businesses that are like correlated with your product. Maybe one's a product and one's a service, but they kind of work together. Maybe your product is used typically before another product, or like I said, with the product. So think about other businesses in Lexington that you can team up with and offer, a new experience or a combined experience, and think of their assets as well. So if maybe one business is still open doing drive-throughs, but your facility doesn't have the ability to do drive-throughs. There's no, not enough room there. You don't have a drive-through window or anything like that. Maybe it's an opportunity for you all to team up and have your products, passed through their window. And, think of different ideas that you can have outside of the scope of your business. And that's, a key time to develop these new relationships with your neighbors as well. And, it's important to not just be so focused on your own Lego pieces. Take that, in that step one, when you're listing your assets, feel free to make another column of assets with your neighbors and see if there's any cross-linking that could happen. So yeah, this is definitely a good time to bring in that sense of community.
Yeah, great thought. Any favorite examples of that collaboration around the city or the region, Tony?
There's so many different opportunities for collaboration, but I just like the experience collaboration. So, if you have a package together where, at a grocery store, you can, not only get your groceries, but then you can get other key essential items. I know that we have some local grocery stores stocking up on cleaning supplies right at the checkout lane. We have delivery companies delivering not only their primary products, but also other supplemental products that are important in these times and age. So there's just a lot of opportunity out there, and I'm excited to see what comes in the next few weeks, right? So I've got a feeling that we have some businesses already partnering up to release some really cool things in the future. So yeah, I think it's just how a world where however you create it, bringing together different businesses.
Yeah, great thought. And on that note, it's funny you mentioned grocery stores. Here in our neighborhood, we've got Wilson's Grocery, which is this great little quiet grocery store and lunch counter that's sort of buried in a neighborhood. Well, they've openly talked about how in the last couple of weeks, their foot traffic is up because people are looking for things they can't find in the big box stores. And they've also got great relationships with some of the other food retail places. And so they have become a place where some of those retail places like Sunrise Bakery, which may not be doing its retail operation right now, has ingredients that they need to use. So they're making more wholesale bread and they're selling it through Wilson's, which has increased foot traffic now. So it's just a different way of getting products into the hands of customers, but it requires that partnership and that strong relationship in order to do that. And it's not just the bread that they're doing. They've got local eggs and they've got produce that's landing on their shelves. It's a pivot, and it's working out and serving a number of different organizations at the same time. So with that being said, I think that's a lot of great information. There's some great how-tos that we'll recap. Tony, any parting thoughts, anything you want to add on top of what we've already talked about?
Yeah, so there's a couple great initiatives that are out there that I encourage, business owners to take advantage of. One of them is a site that just popped up recently, lexunite.com. It's a wonderful place where you can add your own small business to this list of businesses that are coming together and offering e-gift cards online. So that'll help your cash flow, as you kind of pass over these turmoil times. And that's a key point, right? Like right off the bat, start thinking about that low-hanging fruit. If you aren't able to have your business open right now, make sure at least at a bare minimum, you have a way to sell e-gift cards online. It's very important for that cash flow. But once you have that set up, there's a link on Lex Unite to add your business to it. Share that around with the community so that everyone can benefit from it. There's a lot of extra resource links here on the screen as well. I know the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce has some extremely valuable resources. So there's a lot of things that you can do for your business. just to keep awareness up. And that's a point where, in today's age, everyone is thinking, for the most part, business, if it's not essential business, it's closed. So if you're open or partially open or closed but offering your products maybe at a storefront, at a grocery front, or somewhere different, make sure that's known, right? Make sure you are emailing your entire mailing list and saying, hey, in these times we have altered hours, we are delivering our goods or services in a different way, but don't worry, we're taking these precautions, but here's how you can still get our stuff. And then always include a way to buy an e-gift card. If this is not a time for you, please still support us so that we can continue serving you, after everything returns back to normalcy, by buying an e-gift card to help, cover our costs as we continue in these next few months. So, having all of that communication reassures the community that it's okay to buy from you and how to do it, right? These you kind of need to have an opt-in now, because everyone has essentially thought of, most businesses as opted out. But you need to reassure them that it's safe and you're open, but it's different. The way you do business is different, and here's how it is. So make sure that you communicate that out. Don't expect everyone to just hunt for your information, or just to expect they can show up and still get things delivered to their car. They need to know that, affirmatively from you all. So those are a couple last parting tips I want to leave you all with. But definitely check out these resources. There's a lot of things that are happening in the small business world.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tony. And just to reference the previous slide very quickly, we took everything that Tony said. There you go, the steps to innovation and ideation. These are the 4 steps that Tony walked through early in the conversation. And then Liz, if you could go forward one more slide. Again, to Tony's point, there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of information that covers things that any business might need right now, from SBA disaster relief funds to unemployment qualifications, down to, again, on that Visit Lex page. It literally lists every restaurant every local restaurant that's open right now, and whether it's just carry out or delivery or gift cards or what combination thereof. So the information's out there, and those links can hopefully help you get a little bit closer to it. Liz, before we wrap up, anything from your side?
Yeah, I just wanted to leave everyone with one last thought. I also saw another tweet the other day. I've seen a few of them, but it was a list of companies founded from the years 2008 to 2010, which obviously was the last incredibly hard time that our country went through in particular. And I have a feeling this one is going to be possibly more tough. But that said, as a bit of encouragement, companies that came out of that time, Airbnb, Pinterest, Slack, Square, Stripe, Uber, WhatsApp. There's more. There's a list of 20 on the page I'm looking at. But this is a time of innovation. There are going to be brilliant ideas that come out of this. There are going to be companies that pivot to a whole different product line, to a whole different customer base. There's going to be new disruption in the markets. I'm excited, as well as obviously we're all hurting and we're hurting together. But there's a lot of good that's going to come out of this. And so our hope for every one of you listening to this is that you're a part of that, is that you're a part of the innovation and the creativity that's going to come out of these times. So take heart. There are far better things ahead. So, and we're here to help in whatever way we can.
Yeah, great thought. And I like how you phrase that, Liz. And I just want to add, again, all the way back to what we said at the beginning. Hopefully what we've shared today helps someone get around the curve or figure out their lifeboat through this. But at the most basic level, Lexington, Central Kentucky, we love you. We are here for you. And if there's anything that you need, feel free to reach out to us. You can just look at the Venture Labs page at Awesome Inc. On Awesome Inc.'s website and find all of our contact. But again, we love you. We're here for you, and we're going to get through this. Thank you.
Bye, guys.